Avery, Sunshine, and Dana.
Hey.
First question, your partnership seems so seamless and genuine.
Yeah.
How did you accomplish that?
It was just something that was very natural, and we just didn't fight it. You know, we just kind of drawn to each other. You know, he always says, you know, we just like a lot of the same things. We kind of think, you know, think alike a lot. You know, and it just works. And you find that when you're working with people like that, you don't have to fight with them like
That much.
that much. That you should that you can keep it real, okay? It works. It works.
Really? How long have you been working together?
Yeah, it's been probably about 10 years, give or take a little bit. Yeah.
You guys even got the matching glasses and everything going on, the coordinated look.
You know, see, he started that stuff, so I figured I would do that. You didn't match my lipstick.
Okay, but it looks great. Let's talk about independent artists. There seems to be an independent artist movement, and the music that's coming from independent artists seems to be more genuine, more happy, more real. And personally, I prefer it.
Yeah.
What can you attribute that to? What the differences between independent and being attached to a label?
I think that, you know, maybe for good reason, labels invest quite a bit of money into artists, and that could be a good or bad thing. The great thing about it is you have the tools and means and access to a lot more things. The downside in that is if they've invested, they have a say in that investment. So they say, you know, our statistics say that your music should sound and look like this,
You should
and
look
so
like
you
this.
should do this, and this is what we're looking for. We got these producers for you, we got these
And you
writers.
somebody to rap
and
on
go
it.
ahead, and we need it in 90 days, and that's generally what happens. The great and sometimes challenging part of being independent is just that you are writing your own check in many cases. So you don't have as many tools. You don't have, but what you do have is I'm just going to make the music that I think is jamming.
Yes.
And I think that is why the music tends to feel good and
And
has
resonate with people.
Right.
Because we're just coming from that place. We're not trying to make it sound like anything else.
Right.
All I can do is tell you my story.
Right.
And what's so interesting about it is a whole bunch of people with the same story.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Same vibe. Maybe
With a
different
different
characters.
spin, yeah.
Yes.
With different spin. It's the same thing. And I think that is a blessing to be able to do that.
Right.
You know?
Speaking of music that resonates, as a fan, from the perspective of a fan, I've noticed your music sort of shifted a little bit. In the beginning, it was kind of like inspirational, motivational, and then it transitioned more into real life stories and scenarios like Call My Names. And where did that come from? Was it deliberate? And for me, listening, I went, oh, hey, go ahead, Avery, I like that. But how did you make that transition, or did you even realize you were making it?
Didn't realize we were making it. They all come from experiences. Any and every song that we write, something we dealt with, something we're going through, something we, you know, all of it. That was a particular situation in a relationship. It's like I woke up and was like, wait a minute, you know, when's the last time you said something real loving to me? When's the last time I called you boo?
Right.
We're cool. There's nothing wrong. But when's the last time we've been loving?
Right.
You know, and that's a real thing. You know, and I always talk about God finally sent me my companion, and I know who he is, and I'm grateful. So glad that I got him, and love is just wonderful. But usually we stop there. We don't talk about beyond that point. How do you stay in love? How do you maintain that relationship, or how do you make it grow? We get busy, you know, with life and taking care of kids and going to jobs and all that. We forget to have date night, and we forget to, you know, to sew back into that our companions, you know, and so all of our songs come from that place. All of them.
How easy, with that being said, how easy or difficult is it to write like that, where you're actually sharing? It's because it's kind of exposing experiences. So how easy or difficult is it to share that part of you?
We do have to tailor some stuff so that it is not too. Yeah, because first record, I was going through my divorce, and we had one called, the song was called Tired. Well, y'all ain't heard that one. We didn't even release that one. It's a bit much. You know, so sometimes we do have to filter so that it is not just so far to the left that people are like, wow, she's angry. So I don't think that's what music is supposed to do. That's not what our music is supposed to do.
And I think that the process always is, you touched on part of it, it always is, is this an experience that I want to share? And then secondarily, is this an experience that I want to share that will resonate with
Absolutely.
people? And not in a way that we're trying to make stuff for people, but, you always want to think about, is this within,
palatable? Is it palatable?
Yeah, is it palatable?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
people be able to receive it.
Yeah.
Am I so caught up in how I'm feeling about it that people don't get it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that if you're going to be an artist, you do have to be concerned about that. You can't just say, hey, this how I feel today. Y'all can get me. Like, oh, okay, you can.
And you should, but then you do have
that's
to.
your reality.
You do have to think about what your goal is, and if you do want to, it is.
You want to alienate
business.
people, then I mean, you're right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of the hardcore music that's just this hatred. They're just perpetuating hate, and then you don't want to fall into that category.
No, not at all.
Now this tour, you guys are covering a lot of ground.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? Are you tired? Are you excited? A combination?
Yeah, we're
What
tired.
is it? Hungry.
And hungry, but that's what we were saying. We not complaining. Very careful for our comments to not sound like we are complaining. So we say, I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. But we say it all the time. We ask God to enlarge our territory. We ask God to give us music that the world does want to hear and needs to hear. Thank you, God. Give us both that music. When God gives it to us, we can't be like, okay, you can. But very careful to not be, to sound ungrateful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And at the end of
we're grateful.
At the end of the day, anybody who's successful has to work hard. You can either do that for yourself, or you can do that for someone else. I've worked in corporate America, and I've worked really hard in corporate America, and had to travel and do all kinds of stuff. And I'm just thankful to be able to do it, doing something that I love. That's music and traveling. I love both of those things very much, and this is great. It does get tiring sometimes. Flights get canceled, but it's weather's bad sometimes, or promoters are janky every once in a while, but I'm just explaining. I'm not complaining. Yeah.
Dana, you triggered another question. You talked about your corporate America background.
Sure.
I think sometimes people have the misconception that independent artists are just kind of in la la land. They haven't experienced corporate America. They haven't gotten an education.
Yeah.
They're not disciplined. You're just out here making music, and you're not in reality land.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that difference and the real path that it took to be this independent artist. Because I'm sure it wasn't just like, oh hey, let's just do this, Avery, let's go.
So I will say the average independent artist that I know, on average, have college degrees, some in music, many in other things. I have a degree and a master's in business. Oh, thank you. And I think that those experiences are very helpful in many ways. Just from a technical understanding, business understanding, and a work ethic. All of that stuff I think is really, really helpful. But no, none of the artists that I know that have any level of success, and even those that are just very talented that we don't all know their names, they are very, very intelligent, and in most cases well-educated folks.
That's right.
Definitely, and that's what I see, and I really wanted to get that out there, because sometimes people think independent music and they really think you guys don't do anything all day. It's like I just put on makeup and match my glasses to my lipstick and go on stage.
Not at all. Now I've mainly 90% of my work from the time that I was 13 has been in music though. The only square gig I've had, I worked in a bank when I graduated from college.
How long?
That's it. You want to ask how long I
I'm
worked
just
there?
curious.
2 weeks, but that's not the point.
Was that torture for you? Because it would be for me.
It was for me. What was good about it, I liked dealing with the people. I did not really care for 9 to 5.
Right.
That was really weird. I would do it. I'd be on time. You know, I didn't have a problem with that. I just didn't like it. Doing the same thing the same way every day. That was bizarre. And I think that helped. I needed to do that so that I would know that I wasn't created to do that thing.
Yeah.
So, I 2 weeks.
My last question, related to what you said about a square job and being normal.
Yeah.
When did you realize it was okay not to be normal? Because some people cannot imagine not working a 9 to 5 and that predictability.
Absolutely.
So when did it become okay for you to say, okay, I'm not normal and I love it? When did that happen for you?
I've always dealt with it because I've always been referred to. People always looked at being a musician like it's not a real job. So I've always had to defend what I do. And a lot of people felt that way too because they'd find out how much money I made, you know, and they at work every day. And I don't say it like that. As a church musician at the time, you could do pretty well.
Yeah.
And depending on where you are, these folk go to work 5 days a week. They see I do a couple of rehearsals a week on Sunday morning. I'm able to do other stuff. You get that energy from people. So I was always defending, you ain't got a real job, and so it really took a toll on me. And I don't think it was until not till very recently I felt okay. Like my mother was one of the people who, she said, listen, I paid for those piano lessons and all that schooling you had for you to be a musician. And if that means you're a musician at church or you out on the stage with somebody, that's just fine. So you better teach, mother. Come on,
right.
Ruth. I paid for you just like somebody would pay for their child to be a doctor or for whatever. You went to school. You don't feel any kind of way about your calling, your work. And but it still took me a minute. Because you got all these other voices and all this other influences telling you, especially in the academic community. Like, oh, you're going to do music? Okay, so what are you really going to do?
Definitely.
We've got a lot of friends, or a lot of people that we know who weren't able to do music because that was not a part of the picture. That's extracurricular.
Yeah,
that's not the main event.
Well, I think what's interesting is people always say, I just do this. This is my corporate America. This is my plan B. But when your plan B gets bigger than your plan A, it's not your plan B anymore. It's now your plan A. And I found myself in that place and had to make a pivotal decision and felt perfectly okay about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And had some of the experiences, some of the not so positive experience I had with my plan B helped me to kind of push my plan B or have a plan to get my plan B, off the table.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I always say in the arts, at some point your plan B becomes an alternate route to plan A, not an alternative to plan A.
Bam!
Absolutely.
That's brilliant.
It's like
route to plan A.
You can't do anything else.
That'll preach.
You're just
Yeah.
empty inside.
That's the truth.
Come on in.
That's the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You guys are delightful. Y'all so cute.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I make him look good, don't I?
Yeah, you do. Well, we're done. I'm gonna let you guys go eat.
Thank y'all so
Okay,
much.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we're gonna hang out in Evanston, wait for the concert. I know you're gonna be phenomenal.
Thank you so much.